Hello, I'm Mark Holmes, the Editorial Director of VIA Satellite. I'm delighted to be at the Inmarsat head office in London today with Rupert Pearce, the CEO of Inmarsat. One of the big topics that we've spoken about over the last year or so is the connected car, and there's been more talk of, I think just generally in the satellite industry, of this sort of potential new market. Where do you see the opportunity for Inmarsat in terms of the connected car?
Well, to us there are three particular types of connectivity into the connected car. The first is the one everyone talks about, which is the autonomous car. So systems, connectivity systems and other systems that can support and facilitate a truly autonomous car that drives us around while we sit in the back seat. The second is the entertained car, which is about the provision of broadband and entertainment capabilities to us as we lounge in the back seat being driven around in the car. And the third is what I call the industrial internet of the car, which is about supporting and maintaining the systems and subsystems on the car remotely. And it's that third area that we're focused on predominantly. We do have precision navigation capabilities, which we hope will be one of the many, many systems that support the autonomous car. But it's our ability to provide very high resilience global L-band capabilities to support over-the-air updates to cars and a telematics forward and return path that we think is most appropriate for our networks.
So who would Inmarsat be doing deals with to enable that? Do you do them directly with the car manufacturer? How is it going to work?
I think the key is to recognise that when the satellite industry is going into the automobile industry globally, that it's an enormous, enormous ecosystem full of very large, very complex, very experienced organisations. It's very difficult to insert yourself into that ecosystem and be taken seriously and not just bounce off from that ecosystem. So I think the first thing our industry needs to do is work through the incumbents, not around the incumbents. I think going direct to OEMs is something you need to do in terms of understanding them and their needs, but it's very difficult to engage with them directly when it comes to service offerings. So as you know, because it's public, our approach at Inmarsat may not be the right one, but our approach is to work through the tier ones and to develop an intimate relationship, a partnering relationship with the tier ones. Our initial partner is Continental, and they've been incredibly helpful and incredibly generous with their time in helping us understand where the sweet spot for satellite is in terms of supporting this industry.
And just sort of over the next couple of years, where do you hope to position Inmarsat in terms of the connected car market?
Well, I think it's about developing a value proposition that can be readily understood, and that value proposition has to include the antenna, the form factor, the end-to-end network, and then the service that runs across it. And that's something we need to do with some of the thought leaders among the OEMs, but most of all with the tier ones. I think based on that you can then develop a proposition that can be prototyped, and then if it works, if it's acceptable, then we'll go into the development funnel, if you like, into at the earliest 2021, 2022 models.
And just sort of finally on this market, we've often talked about maritime and aero and sort of the growth that you're seeing there and the opportunity there. Do you expect that the connected car market, is that going to be a much tougher nut to crack for Inmarsat and the satellite industry generally, do you think?
I think it's going to be much, much tougher to crack than some of the traditional areas for the satellite industry, where in most cases the satellite industry is competing amongst itself, and there are no other disruptive technologies that are going to come along and disrupt you. When we talk about the connected car, we're talking about, by definition, a land-based product. Therefore, it is going to be something competed upon furiously by other connectivity networks that operate on land, notably Wi-Fi, WiMAX, and of course terrestrial mobile. We're talking about a very, very dynamic, very, very large industry with lots of existential threats that abound. So, for example, we talk about a world where cars become predominantly electric in the next 40 or 50 years. What does that mean in terms of solving some of the connectivity problems? Because you're going to be plugging yourself into a wire at regular intervals when you're a car owner. If you're talking about a model that goes from ownership to shared ownership, what does that mean in terms of disruption as well? So there's a lot of disruption in this industry, and it's a very complex industry with enormous incumbents, and therefore it's a very high risk industry to go into.
Interesting. Rupert, thank you very much. This is Mark Holmes, the editorial director of Via Satellite, reporting from Inmarsat's head office.